Hi everyone, delonewolf here, and welcome back for some more EVE Online. Welcome back also to JITA, the largest trade hub in EVE Online. Today's video is going to be another market video, sort of a request, although the request was a little bit larger than that. But yeah, someone asked me to take a look at ICE, and it was sort of like, can you bring that back for EVE Talk? I'll be honest, it's a pretty large segment with a lot of products, so I want to keep EVE Talk to like 1 hour so that it's doable for me as well in my free time. But perhaps I should, try to touch on it a little bit more often in the extra products. But I thought it would be interesting to take a look at the ICE products, at ICE and at fuels for this video, just to see what happened after all of the industry changes. Actually, this is my second recording, so I know a lot about the trends that have already been happening. And it is pretty damn interesting. So let's get started. First of all, we have to find ICE itself. So that's going to be in materials, I think, raw materials, and then we should get the ICE ores. Let's get started right off the bat here with blue ICE, and you can already tell that there is a lot of demand for this stuff because we're starting at 700,000 ISK per unit for the sellers, a billion unit for the second seller, and there's hardly anything available in or around JITA. If we look at the average prices for this one, pretty bad chart because of a data point, but the trend is pretty obvious. We start the year at 150,000 ISK per unit, and at the moment the average prices are around, let's see if I can spot that, 350,000, over double the price, and that is of course if it is available. Sometimes desperate people are willing to pay over 500,000 ISK per unit. And then we also see the nice trend line here in April, a big rush on this item as well, just like with all of the industry related items. Because of the changes that has been introduced in April for industry, we do get a little bit of a rush on everything. That was actually a sustained plateau through May. This is very different from, for instance, minerals. And the big change here is of course that the industry changes require a lot more when it comes to doing alchemy, and then we go to reactions. There we go, that's the word I'm looking for. I keep forgetting it, but yeah, reactions which require fuel, and with more reactions needed to just do industry, this means more demand for fuel and thus also for ICE products, and that's why we are far more expensive. We'll go through most of these, but you can see, you'll be able to see that the trend is pretty much the same here. Again, we start here at 150,000 per unit. We end the year at above 300,000 units. We're actually peaking right now towards a 1-year high point, and again the April spike that actually maintained its premium throughout most of the summer, which is pretty impressive considering of course the lower activity that we've spotted. And it's actually 500,000 ISK for the sellers, 320 for the buyers. Pretty large margin between sellers and buyers. Then we are coming to the part here that's all about the compressed ICE, and this is actually really interesting as well. I mentioned it, I think, in my last Sunday recap as well. I've noticed that at the moment compression is very valuable. I had a load of, I think it was mostly scordite, that went from 28 million estimated value to 38 million estimated value just for the compression. And we'll see here in a moment, it's the same story in ICE. Being able to move stuff around has really gained in importance in EVE Online, and we are paying a lot more ISK for that. So here you can see compressed ICE, similar start. Compressed blue ICE, so blue ICE, similar start at around 150,000 at the start, 180, 170, a little bit more of course. There is the compression margin that you have to pay. But look at where we're ending on average at 500,000 ISK, and we do have a war-related spike, I think, here in August, where, of course, if I'm not mistaken, the Imperium tried to do economic warfare against their enemy, who needed a lot of fuel and ICE-related products in order to retreat. So they made that super, super expensive. But if we disregard this, you still have that same trend where in April we went up to above 500,000 ISK, and we fell back a little bit to 400,000, 380 through June, July, but overall we're still paying that massive premium because of the inherent increased demand for fuel after the industry changes. And at the moment, yeah, you're paying 555,000 ISK for the sellers, but look at that as well, 520,000 ISK for the buyers. So the action is not in the raw ice. The action is actually in the compressed blue ice. It is definitely worth it to compress your ice at the moment. The premium is pretty massive. If you look at the buyers here, and they buy here for 320, and then they're here buying for 520. That's 200,000 disc per unit potential premium for just compressing, which is quite a lot, of course. Compressed ice, compressed clear icicles, confirming the trend with again an early July spike, driving the price to 1 year high point up to 450. And then still at around 400,000 disc average, with again 415 for 20,000 for the sellers, but 400,000 almost for the buyers. Very, very narrow margin, a lot of demand, a lot of competition for all of that compressed ice. Compressed dark glitter fell back in the month of August, but here we have this after April spike, which again indicates that higher demand in general for fuel that exists, and a little bit of a fallback, but it's all relative, of course, to 630,000, another spike to 880, and then we fell back to 500,000 disc. We're not seeing that August volume, I guess because of the price it was already at. The Imperium didn't really feel the need to blockade the compressed dark glitter market. And then as we go through this, we're gonna get the same trends here, although sometimes the charts, because of the lack of volumes, are pretty bad, but pretty obvious again. Starts at 250,000, spikes in April and in May due to the industry changes. Then we get the volumes perhaps in August for the war, but that seems a little bit late. And still the situation is sellers at 600k, buyers at 500k. That's very expensive. So the high demand for compressed ice is definitely there. Compressed gelitis is a little bit less, pretty sharp drop off after July, going down to less than 500,000, but still it's one seller at 500, then it's 550, and you can see how aggressive the buyers get very quickly as well to 520,000. Is the best times may be over at this point, but we're still talking very expensive ice and very expensive compressed ice here, right here. The August manipulation from the Imperium is what I suspect here, driving the price up to almost 800,000 ISK. At least 630 on the 5-day moving average. That's pretty decent amount of effort in order to get that to work. But again, 500k, and starts the year at like 180, 200 maybe, something like that. So a really nice increase in value and just in general demand as well. Compressed glare crust, again the April bump, then a pretty strong summer, a bit of a pullback, but we still have a very nice premium from the start of the year. We'll go a little bit more quickly through these charts as well. Compressed crystallos may look like it pulled back a little bit better, but again starts at 500,000 as well, so way more expensive than the others. And then we get something that starts at 250, compressed pristine white glaze, ends at 500,000 disc, actually again on a high plateau at the moment. And the trend is just the same, with compressed smooth glacial mass able to go to a 1-year high point, so availability should not be great. They're trying to sell for 900,000 disc at the moment, 600 for the buyers. You can see most of these other buyers have been 500,000 and below. Here 600,000, so there's such a strong demand for compression that there's even a 20% premium for a single compressed ice. That is possible. They're pretty desperate for this stuff. Or the market is pretty desperate for this stuff, I should say. Thick blue ice above 500k. We'll look at the margin here again. 750 for the sellers, 560,000 for the buyers, being pushed up quite heavily just because there's that much demand. Compressed white glaze also at a high point of 500,000 disc, over double the price from the start of the year. And then if we go back to these raw ice, it's gonna be the same story. Unfortunately, a lot of these charts are quite bad because of what I said. The interest lies in the compressed ice, and so you can see here on the daily volumes quite a lot of days without a single trade in dark glitter. So this is a very bad chart, but we can clearly see starts at 250,000 disc in April, and just before April, that's where things change. We go up to 500 and above, 600,000 disc here, and then at the moment we're still paying a pretty nice premium. We can see the same story pretty much here, and then I think we have to go all the way down. Yeah, all of these you can see from the volumes down below are pretty bad charts to try and make a story. But if we go to the final one, we've got the white glaze that is basically confirming this trend without really breaking out that much into the daily average volume. So we start at like a little bit above 150,000 disc. We go up to 300,000 at the start of the year, but then in April, of course, we've got the industry changes, the rush on ice, the need for fuel becomes far greater. And here at the tail end, it's just insatiable because it only goes up to 400,000 disc. Well, the market says that seems so cheap. Demand picks up and we go up to 500,000 now for the sellers and 400,000 for the buyers. So I would say that it is a great time for ice miners out there. They're getting a pretty nice bang for their buck, especially if they have the ability to easily and effectively compress their ice. That premium is quite vast. It makes it all far more mobile as well. And it's also a nice sign that if or when CCP introduces the compression for the moon materials, that will really change that market quite drastically as well, in my opinion. So yeah, that's it for the raw materials. Then we'll touch on the ice products here. So this is what you get for refining ice. You've got heavy water. Actually didn't move that much, started a little bit below 75,000 disc, ends at the same. We do have the April rush, but unlike for instance in the compressed ice, because of the summer slump, we've completely negated that increased price and we're back at a price below 75, which is pretty normal. It's a different story in the isotopes, right? You start at 750,000, we have a spike up to 1750, and then we're talking 1400 disc for the sellers, 1300 for the buyers as well. And this is I think the pinpoint action, helium isotopes, if I'm not mistaken, the fuel to move capitals and super capitals and things like that. And of course here we've got this big August bump in volumes, which was that manipulation in order to make the retreat super costly. Obviously locally they can go crazy with the prices as well, but they have to manipulate JITA as well in order to really hurt the enemy. And yeah, the Imperium using their deep pockets to wage economic warfare. It's pretty damn cool to see how lasting it is as well in this. I think that is due to just the increased demand in fuel in general after the industry changes. So same bump up here in April, a little bit of a pullback through the summer, feels quite normal, but then of course the war story happens and we get the spike to 1 year high point that is still not digested, still 1400, which is almost double the price we started the year at. So we'll go through the isotopes, but that's going to be the same trend. Hydrogen isotopes actually making it to 2500 disc and ending at 1500 on the chart, which is triple the price at the start of the year. Then we've got nitrogen isotopes started at almost 500 disc, ends at 1750 and still has not absorbed what happened here in early August with all of that buying. So we're still selling at crazy high prices, 1800 disc for the sellers in JITA. Super expensive and a very big margin compared to the start of the year. And finally oxygen isotopes, exact same story with a high of 3000 disc, 6 times the price of the start of the year. That's the beauty of the sandbox. This is actually also PvP. This is part of the meta when it comes to the large wars. The other stuff, we got liquid ozone that again has that late April, May rush due to the industry changes, but that is completely absorbed at this point or negated due to the summer slump and then everything calming down quite a little bit. And then strontium is still pretty expensive at 5000 disc, but is slowly starting to drop as well from a high point. I think this is more general stuff. If I'm not mistaken, you also use this as munition for the Doomsday. And then you've got yeah, just general fuels and then a couple of items to be built. So here I think that the end of the wartime could actually be what triggered the start of the descent here in August. Still pretty expensive, of course, at the moment, selling for like 5k, yeah, 5,650 in fact, to 400 in the player-owned trade-ups. Probably a couple of old orders there. But definitely going back down as well. And then we can take a quick look at the impact on the fuel blocks. I have that ready down here if I'm not mistaken. So we get the 4 fuel blocks that, of course, not only reliant on ice in order to produce, but also to PI. And I can quickly take a look at that as well, because all of that is seriously under pressure. Very, very cheap PI component. So coolants, for instance, in August just dropped from 9,000 to 6,000 disk, losing 50%. Mechanical parts at a 1-year low point at 6,000 disk as well. Robotics, which historically speaking cost 100,000 disk per unit, are now going for 55,000, also a 1-year low point. And if I'm not mistaken, I also have enriched uranium in this one. A little bit harder to make, so still 7,500 disk, but again from July to August a clear decline in price. So all of this stuff got a lot cheaper. We just saw what happened in ice. The ice did become expensive, especially the compressed ice. And then the impact on the fuel blocks, this is the story, which is kind of interesting as well. It shows that increased demand very well. We get the rush in April and we're still building. We've maintained through the entire summer a price above 25,000. And here at the tail end, we're actually going up towards 30,000 ISK for helium fuel blocks. Same story with hydrogen fuel blocks, right? Again, the April spike has been repeated in August, breaking 30,000 disk, and we're just, you know, at like the highest plateau we've been for all summer, which on this chart is still is already very expensive. Nitrogen fuel block, same story, went above 25k for the whole summer and is working its way back to 30k. And finally oxygen fuel blocks as well, back up to above 30,000 ISK. So these are very expensive fuel blocks. We just saw it's a great time to be an ice miner, especially when you can compress. You're getting a lot of ISK for that. And this might look, all right, ice may be up, but PI is actually falling. So this should be a great time to be producing these fuel blocks. Let's take a quick look at that though, because if we do this one, and then normally I can do view in industry. Let's take a quick look. View in industry, although this is only like an estimated price, the input cost is still at 1.4 million in JITA, and then the output is only at 1.1 million. Now we still have a bit of a catch up to do, I think, on the drop in the value of PI, but it really does show that strontium fell back a little bit, but it's the isotopes. They are so expensive at the moment that it's still not that economical. It's not that good of an idea to be producing the fuel blocks and looking for your margins there. The real margins at the moment, it's for the ice miners and for those that actually compress that ice as well, which is very interesting if you're looking for that alternative from high-sec mining, for instance, which is you know, which has definitely dropped off after the April bump due to lower activity and due to large ships becoming so much harder to make. Also way less titanium that is needed. All of those prices have fallen back quite a little bit. I think that you'll find that your earnings per hour on ice mining could be very, very high if you can find the right spot for ice, of course. And so that's what I wanted to share with you guys for this video, a look at ice fuels and the ice products. Hopefully this can help you find your way in the market. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.